All right, can we get a big clap for that video? So that video was edited together by Luke the Duke, the Capsule London. So big up for sitting through many hours of footage and collating it into about 20 minutes. Thank you. Could I please invite my panelists, Ginger, Gary, Billy, Renegade, Hakeem, and Kenrick, up to our chairs, please. All right, what I'm going to do is I will introduce everyone right to left. So we will start with Mademoiselle Ginger. Mademoiselle Ginger is a world-renowned wacker, the creator of the multi-style dance battle Wack Date, and a founding member of the Wackticianers, the UK's first ever waacking crew. She discovered waacking in 2009 and through it found her passion for teaching and performing, becoming known for her irresistible energy and dramatic style. A tenacious battler, Ginger has won numerous titles internationally and has the longest running weekly waacking class in the UK. Can we get a whoop whoop for Ginger? Next up, we have Hakeem Onibudo. You guys have actually sat so far in the order that I have you down on my list, so that's very clever of you, thank you. It makes my life easier. Since 1995, Hakeem has been widely recognised as a choreographer, performer, mentor, and British Council Cultural Leadership International Ambassador. Known as Mr. Impact, Hakeem is the UK's most sought-after red carpet warm-up host. He is the founder of Live Vibe, a popular performance platform, which has toured internationally to Hong Kong, Zimbabwe, and Venezuela. He is also the founder, CEO, and artistic director of Impact Dance, a youth empowerment organisation which motivates, leads, and inspires ordinary young people through hip-hop dance. Can we get a whoop whoop for Hakeem? Oh, now the order's messed up. So next up we have Kenrick, H2O, Sandy, MBE. Many letters in this guy's name. There are also probably letters that I have missed. Kenrick is the co-founder and co-artistic director of Boy Blue since 2001, a Barbican associate artist since 2009, and one of the most renowned choreographers and performers in the UK. In 2007, he won an Olivier Award for the Boy Blue production Pied Piper, a hip-hop dance revolution. Kenrick choreographed a section of the London 2012 Olympic ceremony and created the first ever hip-hop theatre piece to be included in the AQA GCSE dance syllabus, Emancipation of Expressionism. Last weekend, Boy Blue celebrated its 21st anniversary with over 130 dancers on stage at Barbican for a night with Boy Blue. Can we get a whoop for Kenrick, please? Next, we have Gary Nurse. Gary Nurse is a dancer, writer, director, and choreographer, and is recognised as one of the pioneers of UK jazz dance style. He also clearly has bionic knees from the footage that we just saw, because, boy. Or maybe you used to. Maybe they're a bit worn now, who knows? We'll find out. He has worked for artists and brands including George Michael, Nike, and Guinness. As a choreographer, Gary worked on titles such as Street Dance 2, the movie, and Black Mirror, and has now moved into the world of short and feature films. Can we get a whoop for Gary, please? Next up, we have DJ Renegade, aka Kevi Kev. Renegade started as a first-generation UK street dancer in 1982. Woo, I was not even born. And progressed to DJing in 1986. He is a regular DJ at literally all, of the most prestigious street dance events across the globe, including UK B-Boy Champs, IBE, Battle of the Year, Juste Debout, and Red Bull BC1. There was a really long list, but I just shortened it to 5. He is the founder and coach of Soul Mavericks, the UK's national breaking champions, as well as Monsters Popping Crew, both of whom are internationally renowned in the underground battle scene. Along with B-Boy Storm, Renegade was one of the architects of the breaking judging system that was used at the 2018 Youth Olympic Games in Argentina, and he has been speaking on the issue of judging for numerous years. Can we get a whoop whoop for Renegade, please? Jeez, what a panel. Last but by no means least, we have Billy Biznizz. Billy originated as a b-boy and popper, and then later got into DJing in the early 80s also, after watching DJs like Pogo, Cutmaster Swift, and Cosmic Jam. He later DJed for the legendary UK rap groups The London Posse and The Cookie Crew, and supported artists such as De La Soul, NWA, Public Enemy, and House of Pain. Yes, the G's, if you know, you know. Crazy. In the mid to late 1990s, Biznizz also performed in pioneering hip-hop theatre shows, including John ZD's Lyrical Theatre and the Apricot Jam, and Robert Hilton's Urban Classicism. Again, if you know, you know. These were some of the first ever hip-hop theatre pieces to be performed, so this is super dope. Can we get a whoop whoop for Billy, please? Dope. All right, my name is Francesca, for anyone that doesn't know. I am your host for the evening. So the point of this panel discussion was really to bring people together who we felt that are some of the pioneers of the UK scene. And from not only just the bios that I read out, but the footage that we've watched, you can really see these guys have been doing amazing work for longer than half the people in this room have been alive. So this is a really special evening for us to be able to sit everyone down and talk about how the scene started and how it grew into what it is today. So the aim of it is to really look back and dig a bit deeper into the history, because I think a lot of people don't know how the UK scene was back in the day. So thank you to East London Dance for letting us do this in your space. I think it's a really important conversation. So what we're going to do is we'll talk a bit first about everyone's early influences, so how you got into dance, what your artistic influences were, and then we'll dig a little bit deeper into each of the styles that people have been practicing. So we have popping, we have UK jazz, we have waacking, and we have hip-hop choreo. I'm aware we also have breaking, and many people do multiple styles, but we'll focus in more on those ones that I've named. We've only got one mic, so we're going to have to do pass the mic. So maybe Ginger, you can start us off. What were your early influences, and how did you get into dance in the UK?
Hello. Hi. I grew up watching musical theatre, basically. That's the long story really short. My parents literally raised me on musical theatre shows and movies. And then I watched Flashdance. Woo? No? Just me? I watched Flashdance. I was way too young to watch it, and my mum just forgot what the film was really about. And I watched Flashdance, and then next thing I knew, I was literally in my underwear, maniacing, deciding I was going to be a dancer. So that was the beginning. I went to ballet, tap, and modern. And then at 15, I wanted to be really cool. So I was looking for hip-hop classes. I really did want to be cool. That's genuinely why I wanted to do hip-hop. I'm not even going to pretend it was anything else. And I discovered Kenrick's class at Danceworks, 3 till 4:30 on a Saturday afternoon.
Jeez!
And in those days, Hakeem was teaching there as well, or maybe just after or just before, but around the same time. So I would go to ballet all morning, pink tights, leotard, and then go across, take it all off, make sure Kenrick didn't know that I was so not cool, and then started taking Kenrick's class. From there, he asked me to audition for Boy Blue. I pretended I knew what that was. I was like, yeah, I can audition for your crew. I had no clue what it was. I had no idea. I was a really musical theater girl. I auditioned for Boy Blue. I got in. And then my dad called Kenrick and asked if I could go, and it was safe. I was mortified, absolutely mortified, but that's literally what happened. Trained with Boy Blue for 6 years, and then waacking, kind of, people were whispering the name waacking and punking. And to be honest, I didn't really know what it was. I just knew it was like a girly thing, genuinely, that's it. But Rhymes, who was in Boy Blue with me, was like, I'm doing this course. And I was like, can I come? And she was like, let me try and figure it out. So I was like, okay. And then next thing I knew, I went to this Wednesday night course and I started waacking. And honestly, the rest is history. That was like the new beginning and also the end, if that makes sense. Like, everything changed. Did I even answer your question?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Pass the mic. Pass the mic. Pass the mic. Pass the mic.
Yo, what's up? Good evening, everybody. Normally where I come from, I say good evening, people say good evening back. Good evening.
Good evening.
That's good. Mine one, oh boy, I'm going to show my age now. So, Nigerian background, brothers and sisters, used to dance to a radio show hosted by a guy called Greg Edwards. It's called Soul Spectrum back in the 70s. I know, showing my age, innit? And I used to be a real kid, just behind my brothers and sisters, and they used to just be dancing in the front of the mirror all the time, and I just started copying them. So I guess that's where dance kind of surfaced in me. But it was really funny. I was more into the hip-hop culture more than the dance. So in the 80s, 88, around 88, I was just buying vinyl galore. I couldn't afford 1200, so I bought Sound Labs. But I was just mixing. I was in a little sound called OMG Productions. And not only the American influence, but also the UK influence, like Rodney P, London Posse, Caveman, Silver Bullet, all these kind of things. If you want to do your research, these are the kind of people, Darkman, these are the people that were killing it in the UK, as well as the people like the Chuck D's, the Public Enemies, Ultramagnetic MCs, all these kind of people. So I was into my hip hop, but I wasn't really into the dance too tough. But then I went to university, studied a biological science degree, and there I was asked to choreograph a performance for the Afro-Caribbean and Asian Society. And just organizing people and putting them on stage, boy, my palate was wet. Seriously, man. I was like, I need to just do this. And came back to London and wasn't really doing anything for a few years on graduating. And then 1995, I walked into Danceworks. I walked in to drop something off for a friend, and there was a class going on. It was Dolly Henry. She was doing some jazz, and it was coming like out of fame. Everyone was just spinning, sweat was just flying, hitting the mirrors and that kind of stuff. And it reminded me of what I was doing at the university. I said, right, I want to do this. So back in them days, no mobile phones. I literally left Danceworks, went to a phone box, put in my 10p, rang the number, and the woman answered. A woman answered, and I said, can I speak to the manager? They put the manager on, and I said, yeah, my name's Hakeem Onibudo, and I really got a passion for teaching dance. This time I hadn't done nothing. This is 1995. So this woman was like, you're really crazy, come in. No, she started asking me questions on the phone, and I said, look, I'd rather come in. So I went in, to cut a long story short, because there's lots of people who need to talk. I went in, for some strange reason, she gave me a class in 1995, and I remember my first class, didn't know what I was doing. I did a square box, just got people to follow me in a square box. You know what I'm saying? Just literally, it was just like, 1, 2. This was the class. But you know what, at the end of it, I felt electric, and that was the start. And 26 years on, to believe that I got a dance studio in Shaftesbury Avenue from a square box. So what I'm trying to say is that anyone can get anywhere. But anyway, things started to progress. The footage you saw a show at Olympia. That was 1999, 23 years ago. Didn't know what the hell I was doing, but we got sponsored by Nicky Clark to do a half-an-hour show. That was just a little section of it. Funny enough, on that same day, Alicia Dixon, everyone know Alicia Dixon, yeah? She went on she got famous. What's the group called? Mystique. She was supporting us, but they weren't Mystique. They were something else. So that's how mad it was. And they were doing the same bill as us, and that they were trying to get famous. But anyway, we did that show, and from there, I just got a buzz. I wanted to infuse people and started to build kind of like platforms. We started the Spits, and that's where I kind of started meeting people like Kenrick. And all my drive has been for 26 years is to provide platforms. Yeah, I mean, we do create work and we do stuff, but that's not the big drive. The big drive is to see the perpetuation of this amazing scene that some of us have built, a lot of us have built, all the people on this panel, just see the perpetuation. And that's the drive, really. As my motto goes, motivate, lead, inspire, and let young people move, grow, and be. That's just what it is, but I'm sure we'll come back and talk about more things. Thank you.
What's good? Everyone good?
Yeah.
Safe. Say no more. All right. So, you know what I'm like. I had no interest in dance at the very beginning. I thought dance was for girls, leave it there. I was into football, basketball. That was my thing. I was going into graphics design. My brother and Mikey J, Michael Asante, that everyone knows who should know who he is. He's co-artistic director of Boy Blue, Brap all day, E6. They were doing performing arts, and I went to Forest Gate Youth Centre, that's not far from here, to play basketball and to check one girl. And they said, oh, there's dance upstairs. So I said to them too, yeah, you know what, there's dance upstairs. You're not going to do your dance, I'll do my basketball downstairs. So every now and again, I'll go upstairs and have a look at what they're doing. And, you know, they're doing routines. Yeah, good for them. Me, you put soca on, you know, bashment, me there, you know. But hip-hop, me not did that, you know what I mean? Garage, yeah, all day. So one day, they were doing some floor work, some breaking. And I thought, oh, okay, that looks a bit like gymnastics. Man can, you know, twist hand, twist body, everything. And I started doing it, started freestyling a little bit. And the teacher named Cap B, he was like, oh, I can see you're quite natural in this. I was like, nah, I'm just busting a thing. So he goes, we got a show at Hackney Empire in a couple of weeks, and if you want to be a part of it, you can jump in and be a freestyler. And I was like, that's a bit mad. He goes, but if you want to do it, you've got to learn the finale routine. So you could do a freestyle, but you have to learn the finale routine. And I said, okay, cool. He goes, yeah, and you've got to learn it from that little girl there. So her name was Sabrina, aka LMS, and she was 11 years old, and at the time I was 18. So I started dancing when I was 18. So I had to learn this little 4/8 routine. Did the routine, learned it, went to Hackney Empire, did the freestyle flips, a couple jump and prounce, did the routine, and then I think the day after I was just like, what is going on? A big transition happened. I was supposed to go to East Ham College and do a degree in art and design, dropped that, found Barking College, they had a performing arts HNC, did that. Then after that, there was nothing uni-wise for me. Then I just went straight into like auditions. I went to one audition, I danced for Mystique. I just went down to the audition in Fulham Broadway, Dance Attic, yeah. I went there, went to the audition. Paulette Randall was the choreographer. She was like, Brit Awards or Mobile Awards, one of them. Also, you free tomorrow because we're doing stuff for T4 and that. Yeah, I'm free. Didn't know, but I'm free. Jumped on that, and then literally, it just became all of that. And then on top of that, it was like rehearsals during the day, and then battling at night, throw down, jump off. So it just became a whole cacophony of like doing choreography, but then battling at the same time. And then 2001, trying to run a company called Boy Blue, not knowing what's going to happen, how it's going to be, Olivier what's that? You know what I mean? So it's been, if there is anything I would say that was influence, movement-wise, I would say Pop and Pete and Pop and Taco from Breakdance, the movie. I remember having the VHS, I put it in. You know, you're watching it, that's sick, rewind, that's sick, rewind, play, rewind, play. There was no, you know what I mean? You had to do them thing there, play around, come back, come back. You know what I mean? So from a alter ego point of view, it was that kind of vibe, H2O, that came from the flow and everything like that. But yeah, there was nothing about I want to be a dancer. Literally started in 98, 18, did it, done it, liked it, loved it. You know what I mean? And then got into it, and then that was it. And then the rest, like you say, is history, meeting, Chloe and flipping dance works. Sorry, my G, yeah? So in dance works, Hakeem, he was doing spits. He was like, yeah, come and do this spits thing. Come and do this spits thing. Liverpool Street, met Gary a couple times. Yeah, you're doing your thing. Met Renegade couple times, Big Bro Billy with Frank and them, man, John Z, Benji, and it just got to a point where it's just like, rah, I'm involved in this scene. So it just became very organic. So the influences was the people that I met on the journey of where I am now, and yeah, it's just continue being organic and as holistic as possible. Yeah.
Holistic, you know. I'm just really happy to be here. Just listening to you guys, just happy to be here. But I got to say something first and foremost. In terms of street dance too, I had nothing to do with the choreography. I know this is going on. No, absolutely no. And I know this is going online, so just to put that out there.
Okay.
So inspirations. I reckon we could be here all night, really. Inspirations. Disco dancing. See, I assumed I was actually the oldest here, but when Hakeem started talking about Greg Edwards on us, I thought, you know what, maybe I'm not the oldest here. But am I? Thanks, mate. You look more old. You look older anyway. But inspirations. Disco dancing competitions. I was watching Julie Brown, Downtown Julie Brown. Remember? Grant Centino. Kev Darge. I'd probably say that my biggest inspiration in terms of becoming a dancer was my twin. I'm actually a twin. And he was just somebody that was so kind of natural in the way that he danced. And I was so incredibly skinny. I was skinnier then than I was in that film. And, you know, I'm like two-dimensional in that film. And he was just this guy that just had this flow, this style. And I was just really gangly. And are we allowed to swear, by the way? Okay, it's good. Just question.
I don't know.
Because I found myself just reaching for some profanity there, but I just kind of halted. But so he was someone that just had this amazing, super styling, fluid style. And I was just really awful, like shockingly bad. And I used to dance kind of in the mirror of my wardrobe. So I'd open the wardrobe door and there'd be a mirror there and we'd put on our tapes, our TDK, and just dance. And I'd probably have to honestly say that my biggest inspiration was music, because I always felt that music was something that would spawn rhythm. It would spawn movement, really. And I think that, you know, I've got two children, and my eldest, my daughter, 3 years old, I never forget putting on like this soca track, and she was 3 years old. And just to see this kind of innate, like profound movement when I put this, you know, she was literally in a chair, I was feeding her, and we put on this soca track, and just to hear her, see her kind of like, but so rhythmic. So I'd probably have to say that my biggest inspiration was music. I think that that's the thing that just governs everything. In ancient times, music and dance was actually one thing. It was just worship. It wasn't even two separate things. So I'd probably have to say that. And obviously everybody that is here, truly, I know it sounds a little bit we are the world hippie kind of thing, but honestly, if I think about the days when I'd go out with Billy, and kind of only Billy, because I think Billy's probably as old as I am, or actually the oldest. But just being sort of in amongst just amazingly talented dancers that you would only hear. You just hear stories of these superheroes. They were superheroes to me. You just hear these kind of legendary mythological stories of this guy that was doing this at this club in this time to this piece of music, and people would run back to us and talk about these guys, you know, and you just sort of wish to see them, you know, and you'd only see them in clubs. We didn't have internet, obviously. We didn't have anything really to go by visually other than what was on TV. So so we were lucky to be, you know, underaged and kind of like skanking into clubs, you know. So I'd say in a nutshell, that was my inspiration.
I'm going to try and keep it short. I don't, because these guys have had cool stories. No, I'm better at writing, but these guys have had super cool jokes and all sorts. Mine's kind of boring. My family, we're from South America, Guyana, and my early years were spent there, even though I was born here. We moved back there in '71, and I kind of spent the first 8 years in Guyana. My dance influences, my sister, she got me into all of the dancing stuff. She's like 5 years older than me, so I was like her toy, right? Because she was really into dance, right? So if she was doing West Side Story or something, I grew up on musical theatre as well, then I would have to be I would have to be the Sharks and she would be the Jets or whatever. And I also grew up on Bollywood movies because I'm half Indian as well. So I grew up with that kind of influence as well, okay? In Guyana, there's a massive community of like dance and food and worship, right? So it's like they're all intertwined in the community. So I learnt to dance on my mum's feet, actually. Your parent would put you on her feet and then just move around and I was a kid, whatever. When I came to the UK, back to the UK, I went to school with some guy who's here somewhere, Mark Frags, you might know him. Yeah, he's at the back somewhere. And he can tell you as well, we were already into dance super early. We were about 8 years old, 9 years old, and we were already trying to do the robot. We had influences in our community, John Riley, Simon LaFell, all these kind of people already around. My sister connected to the dance scene in the UK, so she was going to clubs, Saxon Tavern, Crackers, Electric Ballroom, would come back telling me stories of these places, would also bring people home. So I met people like John Riley and Simon. If you do any research, you'll find out how dope they were and the history of it. I found out about these kind of guys who were people to look up to already. So IDJ was already like a kind of a name very, very early. So I had influences that I didn't even know. Like my sister would show me some steps from people that she'd met in clubs or whatever. And then in 82, Jeffrey Daniels is on TV. He does popping on Top of the Pops. Also Tony Basil from Mickey fame. She has a special on BBC. There's Poppin' Pete in it. There's Skeeter Rabbit in it. There's Penguin in it. And all of these dances are just coming at the same kind of time. At the same time, there was the situation in the UK in the 70s and 80s is very much a dance culture, right? There was clubs I don't want to go too deep into the story, but white folks didn't want us in their clubs, so we formed our own clubs, right? Sometimes in people's houses. So there was like house parties, there was clubs like Saxon Tavern, et cetera, and then there was like people would hire church halls and have dances there as well. And then later on there was like what were called black clubs, which was like Night Moves, Shinolas, Rosemary's, Governors, Gullivers. What else was there them times? Kisses, which was up the road for me, which used to be Mr. B's, Bouncing Ball, Gossips. There was all these clubs. There's a massive dance scene.
All in London? All in London,
yeah. And then out in the sticks, you'd have places like Tots in Southend and Pizzazz in Billericay and Hollywood's in Romford, and all these places people went to dance, right? You just got in your boy's car and you just drove up there to check gal and dance, right? Did I get a joke in? Wow. Okay, I'm good now. Yeah. So 82 popping comes in. There's like a scene that starts. Mark Fraggles, whatever you want to call yourself. We get involved. We start going to Covent Garden. A scene starts to grow up. Breaking arrives about early 83 from Buffalo Gals. The scene just takes over. It sweeps across the UK. So there's all these centres everywhere. Covent Garden was a centre here. There was a centre out in like Bromley and all these places. There was places in North. The jazz scene was massive in the North. Preston, Birmingham, Nottingham. You guys used to all travel up there, right? Yeah. So these scenes were like super massive. There was also the Northern Soul dance scene that was before that. You'd see a clip on TV. You'd tape the clip. You'd go, right? But in my day, we didn't even have because there was no remote control. So you press the thing, and it went ka-dunk, and the thing went out. You put the VHS in. You put it down. Sometimes it would pop back up. You press play. There was pauses like ka-dunk, 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 ka-dunk. So you'd like miss 5 frames, right? It wasn't like frame by frame. That was way later. You go ka-dunk, 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 and work the moves out. And so my dance influences were people like this guy, my sister, for sure, John Riley, Simon LaFell, all these men that were around. And then later in the break-in, people like Billy, who was really dope early. Cutmaster Swift was really dope early. Dolby, like loads of people on the scene. The scene was massive. right? Like, it was the best of all times, and it was the worst of all times. And I think that you guys have also the same elements going on, right? I don't like when people talk like, oh, it was just great in our day and you guys have a shit time. It's really not like that, right? It's just that at that time, because we were kind of fresh off the boat in terms of being from the Caribbean, from Africa, we had to form our own spaces. There wasn't so much of a mix. Even if you look at the breaking scene back then, there was like 3 white boys, Killian, Darnell, 1 Indian boy, Breaker Ray, 3 Indian boys, Pervez, and a couple of others from East London or whatever. It wasn't the melting pot that it is now, which is way healthier now, right? So like, everybody had their own kind of circles and their own crews and their own cliques, and I think it's much healthier now in terms of that. But my dance influences: Bollywood, musical theatre, my sister, and the people on the scene. Yeah, that's it.
Evening, everyone. I think my first influence was my mum, because being from an African background, coming from Ghana, we were, you see, my man will tell you, we was at parties or some kind of dance every week. And believe me, my mum didn't play when it come to raving, you know? And that's why my dad was always annoyed. But my mum was the first one. She took us out with her, no babysitter. You just bring the kids. Yeah, you go to the dance. You get down. The aunties will look after you. You get fed. You get watered, and you get to jam down. You know, there's always a little section where all the little kids get pushed into the middle. You know what I mean? And me and my little brother had to make sure we rock down everyone, because otherwise my mum wouldn't be happy. So the dance was always fresh. My mum was definitely my first influence. In my teens, when I got to about 14, when I started to be allowed to come out of the house, and then them times you wasn't allowed out of the house. You got to stay inside. You know what I mean? To get out was like bliss. So when I got to 14, I was like allowed to go out more. I got into reggae music. Now this is when we started to go to the sound systems in Brixton Town Hall. This was my next influence. Sound system culture, which was controlling everything. Sound systems would come from north, you know what I mean, the north of England, come down, and they would have a battle. You'd have one sound system in one corner, one in the other, sound clash. And all the young boys in there would just be in there, and there'd be a dance called skanking. That was where I would thrive, because that was one of the first dances I learned to be bad at. Skanking, you got to lift that leg. You know what I mean? There was no playing when it comes to skanking. And
Can we get a demo?
Skanking was actually, for me, my original battle. Same. Original battles were skanking. Those times, you know what I mean? You go in a dance, you come in that skanking circle, next man's coming in there to blaze you out. It's not a joke in the skanking circle. So that was my first taste of actual battling. And then after that, my cousin John, he was into jazz funk music. And so he was like, I'm going to take you to this club called Cat's Whiskers. I said, why would I want to go to a club called Cat's Whiskers? That don't sound like no sexy club to me. That time, because remember, I'm a reggae man. So we're into like, you know, we go to shubeens. We go to like bashment dances, you know what I mean? Like blues dance. Man, hitch up against the wall, drinking rum and all them business. So we said, no, come to Cat's Whiskers, man. Believe me, you're going to love it. Jazz funk music. I was like, so he come to my house. When he come to my house, the guy had tight stretched jeans on. Yeah. He had he had shoes sort of similar to this. Suede, they were like slippers. They were kind of slippers, yeah. They're like smoking slippers, that's what they were called. Suede. He had a tiger on the front there and leg warmers. And I was like, brother, you ain't coming in my house dressed like that. So he was like, no, just bear with me. We went to Cat's Whiskers, and believe me, when I saw them jazz funk guys kicking foot to that music, I was like, I need to be in this place every week. So I got my tight jeans, I got my leg warmers. I was gone.
The switch.
I was gone. No playing. After,
Bro, did you ever chain?
I had a chain too. Yeah, you had the Jazz Funk chain with your keys on the end. You know what I mean? So that was part of the props. After Jazz Funk, just like Renegade, Jeffrey Daniels came in. You know what I mean? That was a massive influence to see Jeffrey Daniels on Top of the Pops, because Top of the Pops was one of the only programs that we would actually see people performing to their own track. So it was like, this was a massive influence to us. So to see Jeffrey Daniels dancing on there, and the only reason he danced by himself was because Jodie Watley and them couldn't make it. The singers couldn't make it. So he was like, no, I'm going to go there and perform. And they were like, how are you going to perform to the song by yourself? He said, don't worry, just bear with me. And he went there and he danced by himself to the song, and that influenced a whole generation of people. That turned everything around for me. You know what I mean? After that, I'm like, these leg warmers are coming off. I'm going to the next phase. So that was my next influence. And then from there, like Renegade said, we were b-boying. We saw all of those, you know what I mean? Rocksteady crew came over. And then the rest was like history. And those times, I was still jazz dancing, because we used to go to Electric Ballroom, was one of our favorite clubs. So I'd still be jazz dancing. We also used to have soul and funk clubs those times, because we had 3 or 4 or 5 different scenes all converging at one time. And because I love dance so much, I wanted to learn to do funk styles. I wanted to learn to dance boogie. I wanted to learn to dance jazz. I wanted to b-boy. I wanted to pop. All of these scenes converge together. Yeah. So this is why dancers like Gary, like what's your name again? Nah, Kevin. Nah, joking. Like Kev and like myself, we're influenced by so many different styles, because at the time when we started to get into these dance styles, there was so much in the melting pot. You know what I mean? It wasn't just one thing, it was many things. So we're built up of many different things.
That's super interesting. Yeah, because I actually didn't know that you were doing jazz as well, so that's cool, because I was like, okay, popping and breaking, and then Gary's like the jazz rep on the panel, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going clubbing, you learn a bit of everything, right? And that's where you guys were. You had to learn to crump. Oh, I was gonna say, you crumping? Okay, yeah, Lovers Rock. Okay. Nice, cool. So what I think we're gonna do is I will actually go back along the panel left to right now, because chronologically, if I understand correctly, I think you guys were probably dancing the earliest. This was like early 80s onwards, late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, and then Hax and Kenrick, it was more like late 90s, and then Ginge. Oh, wow. Wow. You're rude, you know. Oh, dear. Yeah, and then so Hakeem and Kenrick was sort of 90s onwards into 2000s, and then Ginger 2000s onwards, more or less. So can we dig a little bit deeper into Billy and Kev on the popping front? How did you guys start popping specifically in the UK? Who were the earliest people doing it? How did you get involved? Like,
I got into popping simply because of watching Jeffrey Daniels. And then after hearing about Jeffrey Daniels and watching Tony Basil and seeing Poppin' Pete and Sugar Pop and them guys on there, it was about where can we see this dance? And then what a friend of mine said to me, that there are people that go to Covent Garden that are doing this dance. That was the first time I actually went to Covent Garden, the first time I'd actually seen other people performing this dance. And I saw a crew called Micron, and there was four dancers in there. And these guys, for me, it was amazing to see them, because what I didn't realize was 2 of them had family in the United States. So they would travel to America, and they were influenced by all of that. And then they brought it back here. So they said that they were dancing from 81. So they were the first ones I see bring that back here. But in Covent Garden, there was lots of people, but you didn't know who they were. So there'd be dancers there that weren't established, because for us it was the first time there was actually people coming together, coming together to actually do this style of dance. So we didn't even actually call it popping then, did we? We didn't know the right terminologies. We called it body popping.
Body popping.
Yeah, because of Jeffrey Daniels.
Not
Yeah, we
pop
actually,
locking.
we called it body popping, but the actual terminology is popping.
Popping, yeah.
But we was like, oh, body popping. And then, obviously, with the influence of Normsky from Flashdance, you know, then that's when the electric boogie name comes from as well. So we were using those type of terminologies. Most of the people I knew that had family in America that went there and learned the moves and brought them back here were people that were more from the New York side. So it was more what we would say electric boogie than actual popping. It was when Poppin' Pete came here, was it 88? When they came here for the carnival in 83, that's when we actually understood what popping was, the terminologies and that, because when we met them, then they started to set us straight, because we would name things and they'd be like, what are you talking about? And they'd be like, no, this is, so that's where our first influence of that actually came from.
Yeah. And when you say Covent Garden, because when you say, I just imagine Covent Garden as it is now, but like where specifically in Covent Garden?
All of it.
Literally in the middle of Covent Garden.
What happens around
Outside.
that time, because Mark Frags can tell you as well, like we started more with Robot first.
Okay.
So there was a transition from Robot, which was seen in movies like Penitentiary or whatever, and this like, do you remember any of the other movies, bro? I don't even remember.
We also saw the Tick and Talk.
Tick and Talk, yeah. So there was a robot scene, actually. There was even a competition on TV with robots.
With robots, yeah.
Right? And then Poppin' seemed to be an extension of Robot to us.
Interesting.
And Jeffrey Daniels kicked that off, and the Tony Basil special. And then, being from South London, I knew the guys from Micron, like Earl Bennett and Dion Bennett and Ronald Henriquez. So they're from my area. So we knew those people. So they were already doing shows and stuff in Covent Garden. So we just went along with them. Do you know what I mean? When the popping scene really kicks off in 83, people see, I think it was Good Morning Britain or Bacchanal. There were some TV programs that covered this growing scene in Covent Garden. And then a whole wave of people kept coming. And then the scene started to grow. You saw people from all different areas, and the scene just explodes into crazy. Like Covent Garden, because it was like a busker's paradise, you just used to go there, dance a bit for the foreigners, make a bit of cash, go to the McDonald's, maybe go and steal some socks from Multisports or whatever. It was crazy. We were all kids, right?
Yeah,
but
of course.
it was like, for us lot, it was Robot to Poppin'. And then onwards. And then the Boogaloos come. We find out really what popping is, as Billy said. Like, okay, so it's not just... The name given to Electric Boogie at that time was also the Smurf, I think from the Tyrone Brunson song. Yeah. And the French used to call it Le Smurf as well.
Yep.
And they corrected us on that. And it's, you know, popping and Boogaloo and all this kind of stuff. And then the rest is history.
Nice. Sick.
My first recollection was just school. I was in school, and as I said previously, you know, I had school friends that would just come up to me and say, we went this place and we went that place. And I was just too young to go to some of the places, like Cat's Whiskers, for example. And you had 100 Club on Oxford Street, you know, Crackers, obviously. And I was just too young, so I was just waiting for the information from people that were a little bit older than I was, and they'd go out on the weekend and come into school on a Monday and talk about such and such that did this move. And like I said, you know, I spoke about mythology earlier on, and it really honestly was like mythology, because you just heard of these people, especially if you weren't in the clubs, you just hear of them. I used to sprint for Feltham Athletics, and we train on a Tuesday night, Thursday night, and then a Sunday morning. And every now and again there'd be a meeting, and you'd have some of these guys that would just come to the meetings, Paul Shadari being one of them, and he'd bring his GF Sharp GF 777, just a beast of a box, and he would just play music. And I remember at the time you'd hear Candido's Jingo, which was the track that people were just sort of transitioning into this jazz style, which was derivative of kind of boogie and funk. And what you found in those times was that you had various DJs that were buying imported music. So they were buying these imported jazz tracks, these kind of Afro-Cuban tracks and Latin tracks. So there was kind of this evolution of funk boogie that then transitioned into this jazz style. I think I can sit here proudly and say that obviously we know all of these social dances originally have come from sort of Africa. We know that, but I think that the whole jazz scene, what was interesting, and my twin calls it kind of the lost dance, was predominantly, not even so much predominantly, it was just a British thing. I remember meeting Sugar Pop and Wiggles at the time, you know, and they would just go to me like, talk to me about this jazz thing, because it was so different, you know. It was such an amalgamation of all these different things, and you know, we were at Covent with the guys. This is how I know these guys. We were there, and then we'd go to Electric Ballroom on a Friday night, and the energy of this music was so electrifying. We'd have these free tickets, so you'd have to use these free tickets and get into the club before 10 o'clock. And you would get there, make sure you were there earlier, and just go through, like, just be kind of bruised by these sort of vigilante security guards. It would just, you just get beaten up. They were checking you, just getting beaten up, you know. They were just so rough with the kids. But we'd come into this club and sprint upstairs, literally sprint upstairs to the jazz room. You had this tiny little jazz room, and then you had the eclectic room downstairs that would play funk and hip hop. And then, you know, you had this tiny room upstairs where there'd be probably, 150, 200 people tops if it was packed, dancing on carpet. Literally upstairs in Electric Ballroom, we were dancing on carpet. So we didn't even know about knee pads in them days, you know. So you're just like spinning on your knees and going home with like these blood-stained trousers where your flesh would come off. Do you know what I mean? Literally. But then, you know, as we sort of went deeper into it, we then discovered the Berry Brothers and the Nicholas Brothers and Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire, and then started to sort of involve what they were doing. Certain, you know, there's a move that you see me do in my solo that came from Poppin' Pete, the wrap around the leg, you know. And I mean, I was just so skinny in them days, I could get my leg around the other leg, so I can't even get my leg past my knee now. Do you know what I mean? Furthermore, all the way around. But I think as well, like Billy was saying, it was sort of an amalgamation of just loads of different styles, and we merged together. I think that's the thing that for me was more inspirational than anything. Was you had your poppers, you had your b-boys, you had your whatevers, you know, and your jazz dancers. And sometimes what you had was the jazz dancers would be teaching the b-boys footwork for their top rocks. So Hallett, for example, you know, Hallett used to use a couple of combinations that I'd teach him at the time. But we were just all influencing and inspiring each other, and all of us went to Electric Ballroom. That was kind of the mecca. You know, I've said before, if I could build a time machine, it would be a time machine to go back to that period, because it was just euphoria. It was just euphoria, you know, and it was spawned by hearing different kinds of music. It's not like obviously today where, you know, you go out today to clubs and it's a karaoke evening because everybody knows the lyrics to every song, but you'd go to these places and you would just be hearing fresh music. You didn't have to know the music, you know, you just hear something fresh, and that would just spawn and govern new moves and new movement, and this kind of perpetual inspiration that was honestly just spawned from music, you know. So, but in terms of the actual place and the revolution and the evolution, it was Electric Ballroom. Okay. That was my first recollection anyway.
And I think Renegade mentioned it earlier, but you said IDJ, right? This was a jazz collective, your collective. And then there was Brothers in Jazz as well.
Yeah, we see Brothers in Jazz came a little bit later.
Okay.
So, I mean, I was asked to join IDJ. I was kind of the baby of the group when Milton left anyway. So I was 17 when I was asked to join the company, and they were just heroes to me. You know, they were just heroes. They were just guys that I looked up to. And Electric Ballroom had two sort of halves. So you had the kind of the apprenticeship side here, and then you had the kind of intermediates. And you literally couldn't even go over there to that side. I mean, you could go over there, but you'd only watch, you couldn't go over there and dance. So there was like this hierarchy going on in the club, and if you went over there and you started dancing and you had to battle, it was as simple as that, and you'd have to know yourself. Do you know what I mean? I mean, these ciphers and circles were thick. Yeah. There was nowhere to run. There was nowhere to hide. You were in there, and it's like kill or be killed.
Do I want the smoke right now?
Yes, I did. Absolutely. As a kid, I wanted it.
So, thank you. Hakeem.
Oh, gosh. I was going to kind of talk about sort of late 90s up to 2004, like into the hip-hop theatre.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Perfect.
So around the 90s, late 90s, I was still into my music hard. I was still into my hip-hop. I went to one of the most legendary hip-hop events. I wonder if Biznizz was there when Ultramatic MCs were at Dingwalls. You get that? Of course. Everyone was there, innit? Like, I was still into that. But me, I wasn't really focused so much on the styles. I was about stage show. I was just wanting to put on entertainment for people, as you can see from the Nicky Clark clip. And we started to take over a space called the Spits, a legendary space on Commercial Street. From about 1998 until it closed down into 2007. And between that time, kind of street dance crews were starting to emerge. So there was the CNCs, there was the Size 9s, there was obviously Boy Blues were coming more in like the 2000s, etc. There was GWI. So GWI, everyone knows about GWI. That was a crew first. Get With It stands for. Yeah, it was a crew first. And we used to get all these people performing at the Spit. So Spit stage, no joke, was about the size of this square here, tiny, and everyone wanted to be on there. People Ivan Blackstock, Mukhtar, all these people were just performing. And what I was doing, I was learning my trade in terms of a producer, how to put on a platform. I was also testing out work, but also we had people like Gina Yashere, Richard Blackwood come and do comedy in between and stuff. It was popping, not literally, but you know what I'm saying. And I can't remember the chronological order, but somewhere around that time, we were messing around with work. I went to see Aeroplane Man, John Z there at Stratford Theatre Royal. And I swear, my words after that was, "Are we allowed to do this?" John Z said, "Yeah." Because that was the first time because that was in my head already. That's what I was. I wanted to put on shows. I wanted to inspire people. Put on a show. Don't just dance. Put on a show, like conceptual narrative, whatever. And so when I saw Aeroplane Man, I caught John Z afterwards and I was like, "Are we allowed to do this?" And he was like, "Yeah." So that kind of galvanized us even more. So we were doing more mini shows at the Spits. And then around early 2000s, met Ken. I remember I got a call from D7, who's running a crew called Rebirth. And he said to me, I said, I said, Seven. I said, "I need a new crew, man." And he goes, Kenrick Sandy's running a thing. I was like, "You sure?" "Are you sure you're there?" This is me. "Are you sure?"
MBE
He goes, he's like, "Just ring him." So I rang him up. I remember Ken on the phone, yeah, I've got this thing. Ken come down, innit? Ken come down first time, kill it. Second time he come down, kill it again. It was just like, but what was great was just, you could feel something was moving. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, "Oh, look at them, they're too good." It's like, people were like, raw. And everyone now was just up in their game. And this is now 2002. And we thought we were on point. Then Breaking Convention hit. And John Z decided to bring the French over. Frank DeLuise. Has anyone seen Drop It?
Yeah, 2007, I think this was.
Drop It. Like, and that's when, I don't know, Ken probably give his own story. We were just like, we thought we were making work. You know what I mean? We thought we were making work. Like, everyone back to the drawing board. But I'll be honest with you, I don't mind being vulnerable. At that same time, my self-esteem was kind of quite low. And I'll tell you the reason for that. It was because, remember, going back to it, I just wanted to put on a stage show. So in terms of foundations and fundamentals about popping, breaking, all that stuff, didn't really know. We were just jumping around doing madness. It's only kind of after, as the years go, I started going, right, what are the foundations of popping? Not because I wanted to be a popper, but I wanted to understand more. What's the, whatever. Even now, I don't really call myself a choreographer, but, you know what I mean? If you're in the game, you need to know certain things. So my self-esteem was quite low because even though I had these grandeur ideas of putting work on stage, I didn't feel I had the tools. And I didn't also have a team around me who could present those tools choreographically. And I was looking around left and right going, what's going on? But it's only when I found myself in terms of actually, and this is a really important lesson for everyone. Everyone has a role, yeah? Everyone has a role, and our role as Impact is just keep empowering, keep putting on platforms, keep allowing people to find their way. That's, you know, I mean, we still make work and we still want to do the best, and we feel that, you know, our excellence is rising, but you can get lost sometime by looking to your left or to your right and not focusing on where you need to go. So basically 2004 just changed the game. And anyone's been around, you know, just like year after year, I saw one piece in the Lillian Bayliss. I'm still like, what was it, Company? I can't even remember. All I remember the first image I saw was a guy coming out the wings with his foot in a broken toilet. Yeah, I think it was Company Mahmood or something. And there was this guy sitting at the table and it was all easy. Then he got up and he started breaking and like, we were just like, what is going on? But it just started to raise the game, and that's kind of like taking up to 2004. But it'd be really good to get the juxtaposition of your perspective where you were in all that, mister. Thank you.
Jeez.
Fran, what's your question again, fam?
How did you guys originate in the sort of styles that you've become renowned for? I mean, I know over here we've got like multi-styles people. You are also a multi-styles person, but you win awards as a hip-hop choreographer. So how did that hip-hop choreo journey start for you? You had like 500 million different groups before you had Boy Blue and as we know it. So how did that come about?
Oh boy, I mean, it's a bit challenging in this position because you've got the influence of before, then us, and then it went into what is the scene now. So at the time, we were just in East London. There was no other part. I never traveled anywhere. There was no point. I had shops there. Why am I going? You know what I mean? Going to West End was like going out. You know what I mean? Going to West End from East London was like, oh my gosh, it's like a day trip. So it was literally, you stay in your area. There's no reason. And for me, I'm from this area, from Newham. So going into even Hackney or Tower Hamlets or any other borough was like, why are you doing that if the corner shop has everything you need? Do you know what I mean? So that's something that's very important. And it wasn't until I got into dance that I was able to see the world. Like London was a world. Going to South London was completely different. And it was because of, because of going to Dance Attic. So I would say Cat B is one of my first teachers, but another guy named Ryan Jackson, who was, he danced for Whitney Houston, and he was doing classes in Dance Attic. So the commercial side of things I started to understand through him. And then Cat and Ryan kind of mixed up what is my style now. Plus going to places like Huskies as well. Huskies is a very, very important space that, if anything, from a historical point of view, from let's say 1998 onwards, needs to be recognized. Because with Shay and with Dre, Size 9, CNC, and Image, those classes that were happening influenced a lot of people from a South London point of view. So we was going to those classes, but in between that was GWI. GWI is a very, very important group and company and competition. So before all these SDI, UDI, Bomberai, everything, GWI, I lie, bars, yeah? GWI was the one. And myself and my brother, we went down there as Special K, just the two of us. That was in, I think, 99, we went down there. We came fourth. We didn't know what we was coming in. We went any random Adidas tracksuits, went there, did our madness. Yeah, fam, listen, trust me. I was wearing red. I used to wear red.
No.
Yeah.
I need evidence, I need photos.
I wore red, then I saw the light, yeah? So the two of us went there, and we was up against a crew called, there was a guy called Paulie he had Exposure, Paulie, yeah, from Brixton. And then there was also another crew called Vibes. And they were the winners. They won that year, and they were wearing white masks. That's the first time I saw anyone wearing white mask, yeah. So we went there, we saw the situation, and me and my brother went, okay, cool. We spoke to Mikey, you want to come next year? Because we saw a different thing. Doing it in East London, okay, that's great. But coming to South London was the place to be when it came to just street dance choreo. Kid you not, it was the place. So then the next year we came. No, it's true.
Louder.
It's true. It's true. At the time, in order to understand street dance, you went to South London. North London,
Tell them again.
West London,
Tell them
there was a
again.
couple in West London because you had 2020, you had Blaze. Hackney, you had, what's it called? Next Degree, Tony and them lot. You had them lot there. North London, just about. Pinch of salt, maybe. But it was South London, both South East and South West. Tooting, Wandsworth, Brixton. If you're going there, you had to make sure. And we went there, and we came out of, what's it called? I think, Battersea State, one of the, I don't know which one it was. We walked out, and we're looking around going, rah, this is like a whole new world. It's like, and then we saw the dancers, and we just was like, wow. Then we said, Mikey, we'll go next year. And what we did from a choreographic point of view is we go, okay, what is everyone doing? Everyone's doing grooves, everyone's doing foundation, everyone's doing like predominantly popping, locking and breaking. So I started to understand, okay, these are the 3 fundamentals that you need to be a street dancer. Those are the 3 things. Then you need to understand your hip hop foundation. We didn't know the names of the moves, but you're just doing the moves. So even that finale routine I learned had bare moves, and then 10, 15 years afterwards, so I did that in the routine. You didn't know none of that. You just knew how to dance. Yeah. So it wasn't so informative at the time. And then we went back and we said, okay, there's key things we're going to do. We're going to do what we call the set piece. We're going to have Mikey goes, okay, I'll make a soundtrack. So even the terminology soundtrack, before people ask, can I have your music? Mikey goes, here's our soundtrack. So from an influence point of view, from a UK point of view, Boy Blue was like, here's the soundtrack. This is a set piece. And we started to create this isolation choreographic premise. And when we started doing that, because we started to look at the videos and say, okay, here's a breakdown. So when you're watching a video and you have like J-Lo or Christina Milian doing their little breakdown moment, we go, we need more of those because we didn't see that in their sets. So let's bring something fresh. Let's go back to what we did with the flips and do the madness. So we came that year and we took everything from them, everything. I came first in the freestyle, Kelroy came third, Mikey came fourth. We took over runner-up, we took the whole thing. And they were like, where you from? We said, East London. And they were like, rah. So then after that, we go, cool. So then the following year, we brought all our kids and we put them in a little program where they had their little groups, they took their routines and they came. And all of a sudden, South London were like, oh, mad. Like, these East London lot are like, they're taking the piss. They're coming in and they're just taking over. And what's interesting when you say McDonald's is when we won that year, I think what's the one, £90 or something like that. We went McDonald's in Victoria Station because that was like achievement, you know what I mean? Because we weren't paying for the McDonald's, so that was an achievement, yeah? So in that time, even before I met you, all of this was happening. We were going Huskies, I was going to Dre's class, still pushing that, going to Dance Attic. And then we started to go, after that GWI, and then from GWI, that's when Mukta, Plague, the first generation Plague started to kick in, because I met them at Chat's Palace in Hackney. And then that changed it, because then we started to see certain things. There's a group called NLT, No Long Ting, that was Turbo, FM, LM, them ones. And that's a very important thing, because Turbo was going to college with Mukta, and this is the whole influence of how Mukta and us and Plague and Boy Blue really became something in East London. So then it got to a point where everyone was like, rah, I think East London is a place to go to. It became very influential, but one of the key things is that South London held it up because of Huskies, and then you had the Vass, and then you had the other place in Stockwell, and then you had the, what's it called, Brixton Rec. You had things happening there. Plus you also had, because I was going to all of them, and you had GWI Winner Showcase, things were happening there. So you had ample amount of stuff that you had to go to in order to make sure you were relevant. And shows were happening every week, every 2 weeks. So you're constantly having to make content after content after content, you know what I mean? And then it got to a certain space where then the competitions, or the disco comps then tried to take what was the GWI and make up their own thing. That's another conversation, right? But in that space between, let's say, 98 to 2004, where Hakeem's talking about, this is when you started to get the throwdown, jump off. So that forced, for a lot of us who were choreo heads, to bring it to the battle scene. And we were battlers already. A lot of people may think, okay, Ken does choreo, but we used to battle hard. Those who remember, I used to battle hard. Hard. Every week there's a battle, throwdown. Even if I was drinking, I'm battling. It's not a joke. And those battles were the ones that really made a lot of us iconic dancers who we are today. Those things, it wasn't the shows, it was the battling.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I met, like, you got the hardest thing is that as much as we're saying that us lot, it's Clara over there who paid, who came in.
Mama B.
One of the few people who came over, who I appreciate and respect because she appreciated and respected. Some of them cats that came over, and they started chatting some serious thing that I didn't like because it was disrespectful. Because what it is that we wanted to understand what you're saying, but don't belittle us. Because big man thing, you're not in your ends. You're not in your ends. And two, we are doing it from what we know, the resources. We didn't have social media. We didn't have camera on our phone. So all we're learning is from VHS. And even to a point where I didn't meet any of these guys in the prime part of my career. So therefore, I'm just going by what I know and what I see. So if you're coming to approach someone, and this is something that we have to do as teachers, if you're going to come and approach and say, you know what, this is the way you need to do it, understand that that young person has been learning on their ones or whatever it is. So you can't go, that's wrong, and not have a clear explanation. So I was a very defensive young dancer because in my head I was like, I'm working hard, I'm training with no resources, and then you're going to come from where you're coming from and say whatever you're saying and talk to me like I'm, sorry for my language, a dickhead. It doesn't work. So when Clara came over, and I remember it was in Caledonia Road, she was teaching house. I learnt my house through Clara. I couldn't get it the first day. The jack and the hip hop bounce, they were clashing, conflict of interest. Yeah?
Right.
Conflict.
Even now.
It's not until the morning, making eggs, listening to house music, it sat in my body. I was like, oh, why was I overthinking? Clara was patient with me. She must be like, yeah. But
Clara's class does that to people. It makes you feel like you
know
can't dance.
And that's what I'm saying. During that time, there was a lot of teething. Even meeting Sean and what they were doing with Olu and them lot. There was a lot, and there was a lot of riffs because of ego. That's one of the major things. Because then it came to a certain space where I know my thing. I'm the baddest at this. This is my end. So you know what? I'm going to be like this. Everyone wanted to hold on to something because it started to multiply. The amount of dances in the scene started to get more and more and more and more and more. And because of that, and this is something that I think should be discussed, there was a divide between the old school generation and the new school because the ego of defensiveness from us may have made them feel like we can't talk to these young ones, but at the same time, we wanted to understand information, but maybe the approach was done wrong at a certain point, which then kind of, for us, especially for myself, I know maybe I have acted a certain way of just being coarse, and then someone's like, no, I can't talk to Ken because he's just aggy like that. And I understand that, but at the time you're just going, I'm doing my thing, I'm trying to focus, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to push the best I can be. And you don't want to be influenced by other people because you have a focus, like you're saying, you have a vision, you want to push it. And plus you're trying to innovate. I think the key thing is that we're trying to innovate. We didn't have the YouTube to see what was going on. You're looking and you're saying to yourself, what is the next thing? Man did that, I ain't doing that. Or if I do that, I can do it even better. And you're always trying to push it. So if a crew does something and everyone gives it praise, you're looking going, I swear we did that 2 years ago. No, let's just show everyone what it really is. So there was a lot of, I want to just put out there, between 2001 to 2006, there was a lot of ego inside the space, and it made it very challenging for people to be together. But at the same time, when you was together, is because it was crew mentality. It was one of those ones, like, we could be friends, but if you're not in my crew at Jump Off, blow is gonna happen afterwards. You know, it was bad. It was bad. Those who remember Jump Off, and not Jump Off IMD days Jump Off. I'm talking KI, TIP, flipping Philadelphia, Red Assassins, Ken versus Magical Bone situation, Marlon versus Stephen Norman situation. Those were the best days. Clara, we still have a battle that we have to get over because it's 1-1 moment situation. Swarf, you know what I mean? Ivan battling that time. Those were for me, the best days because those egos were beautiful. It was a gift and a curse, you know what I mean, at that time, but it was very, very needed. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. So Ginger, you started, as you said, in Boy Blue with Ken, and which year was this?
So I was around for a lot of this. I know a lot of people think I wasn't because I was shorty. I was a whole different person. And then Mademoiselle Ginger appeared and people didn't realize that they were the same girl.
Gang.
So, but I did a lot of queuing up for Jump Off and getting told I couldn't get in because I was under 18. So I did a lot of that. I know, I did a lot of it, guys. But basically, I can pick up from 2004. 2004 is my first Boy Blue show. So I was in Boy Blue, I mean, every single night I was in Boy Blue. I was not in another crew. It was very like that. I did not live in East London, but I was in East London.
Yeah.
Like this guy
You even
saying.
get the accent.
I did a lot of that. But basically, around 2008, there were whispers of the words punking and waacking. We didn't know what it was. We were doing a lot of flinging our arms around and being like, this is the girly part. That's really what we were saying. Sayaka, who was in Plague, and in the house, she taught, I believe, if memory serves me right, about 3 classes at Huskies. There was like all the Plague and in the house people were teaching like what they specialized in. And I found that super attractive because at the time I didn't specialize in anything. And I'm going to be really honest and say I really wanted to be special at something. So I was kind of looking for something to be fabulous at, and I hadn't quite found it yet. So I went to Sayaka's class. I think she did 3 punkin classes. She herself was like, I don't really know what this dance is, but I'm going to teach you some choreography. She was really like open that she wasn't quite sure. And then in 2009, Damien Aniasi, who runs Be Better, Tim Man, he hosted a course with Kumari Suraj, who came from LA. It was on Wednesday night. It was in some weird studio with mats on the floor. We couldn't wear shoes. It was weird. And basically, for me, what happened, so I went there in my triple XL. I wore the same size as Kenrick in those days. True story. And I went, and I wasn't really ready to be super feminine, but something in my head was like, give yourself the opportunity to figure out what this is. And the very first song that Kumari played, but she skipped it, was Enough Is Enough, No More Tears, Donna Summer and Barbra Streisand. Now, I knew every single word to that song. My parents listened to it all the time. I would have never told anyone in Boy Blue that I listened to Donna Summer and Barbra Streisand. It was never going to happen. It wasn't cool. So I kind of started to split myself in half, and I think a lot of the people who were on the waacking course kind of felt like a double identity at the time. No one was really waacking. No one really knew what it was, so we were in our bubble. There were a bunch of people on this course, and at the end of the 5 weeks, Kumari took us to dinner and literally said, you are now a crew. We had no choice. We were like, you are a crew. And we were like, okay, yeah. You need to find a name. Damien came up with the Waactitioners. At the beginning, we were called the Imperial House of Waacking, London Waactitioners. Then we became independent, the London Waactitioners. Then we became the Waactitioners. There you go. So when people say to me they can't find anything on YouTube, that's why. It's like lots of names. And so the Waactitioners were born, and within seconds, my life changed, to be honest, weeks, because we were going to JoJo's. A bunch of us were going to Madame JoJo's every Sunday for weeks already. Jimbo was playing, and it was all house. It was like everyone was doing different styles there, but the music playing was house, so we were all kind of training our styles to house. I had no style. And all of a sudden, one day, I went, and I like to tell this story because I think it's a cool story. Kamari told us we had to wear heels. So, double XL shorty all of a sudden wasn't there that night, and Mademoiselle Ginger walked in, and people were like, "Hi, who are you?" And I was like, "I was here last week, but fine." And I walked in, and the week before, she told us we had to drop a freestyle. It was like our task for the night. Not everyone did it, but I was really excited to do it because I felt like this was my chance to show off, and I'm a show off, and that's fine. So there was a cypher, and I will just never forget it. Like, everyone was going in, and in my brain, I was like, I'm going next. And then someone would go in and like, okay, no, okay, I'm going next. And then someone would go, okay, definitely next. And then Mukhtar went in, and I was like, oh boy, okay. And then I went in, and I danced with one arm. You know, you saw the footage. I did this, and everything was dark. And then I came out of the circle, and everyone was like, that was sick. And to be honest, I was completely hooked. So waacking just gave me this like freedom to do whatever I wanted. And I can only really speak for myself, but I know a lot of my crew members felt the same way. Like, all of a sudden, we all had superpowers. We could go to breaking events in high heels because we were the practitioners. We could break into a cypher because we were the practitioners. I could enter an all-style battle because I was a practitioner. I could tell DJs I didn't like what they were playing because I was a practitioner. Like, I really was rude to a lot of people because I was a practitioner. I was like, excuse me, why don't you have a waacking category? Well, there aren't enough whackers. Well, I'll find some. I'm a practitioner. So all of the practitioners, we kind of did this thing. A few weeks after the practitioners were born, there was another crew born here, Imperial House of Waacking, which was Oz taught them. And that was Julia, Egla, someone help me, Vicky, Darrell. I put footage. There was footage of all those people up there. And so there were two main crews. There was no beef between the crews. We just didn't really know each other. But we would go to Funk Off on a Friday. Shout out to Funk Off. Billy Biznizz, that's probably where I met you the first time. And that's really where I discovered like the freestyle world in a more positive way. Because before I would go out, we would go out every Wednesday after Boy Blue, me, Bruno, and Nathaniel. We would go to one of Delo's nights. And I would just kind of stand against the wall and be like, because I didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, waacking came, and there was 30 new freestylers on the scene. And we did not care. And if Papa was a Rolling Stone dropped for 15 minutes, we would pose for 15 minutes. So I don't know if I answered the question very well, but that was like the beginning. Yeah. And I think because we all felt that we got superpowers, and we all felt like no one else was really doing it, so we couldn't really be that bad because no one else was doing it. No one was going to say, Ginger, you're only dancing with one arm, because you're not dancing with any arms, right? So we literally didn't care. We just did what we wanted to do. And it grew from there.
Yeah. Nice. And what was the influence from overseas with waacking? Because I know we had, for example, Tyrone Proctor, God rest his soul, and Archie, who is still with us. He was actually here last weekend.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah,
he's
he
in
was
the
here.
UK.
He's still here.
He's here. Yeah. I kind of thought he might turn up, but he's not here. Okay. So for like the geography of waacking, the first waacking crew in Europe was Workaholics in Denmark under Eva Shu. Okay. Eva Shu did quite a bit of teaching around Europe. She was one of the first people kind of judging waacking. The second ever European waacking crew was the Wactitioners. I am going to brag. We were the second. And then it grew from there, because what happened was Tyrone, who unfortunately has now passed, Tyrone created the Imperial House of Waacking. He taught people like Lokaroo, Komari, Oz, Black Cat, Waukesha. And these few names were some of the first people to travel and teach waacking. And so they would come to Europe. Komari came here. Komari and Oz did quite a lot of traveling. And so what would happen was, a few months, poof, I Wanna Whack Italy was born. And then a few months later, poof, another waacking crew was born. Poof, we were like dropping. But I know this isn't that long ago, but we didn't have Instagram, and we didn't really know what was going on, honestly. Like, a lot of people kind of don't realize technology moved very, very quickly, very, very recently. You know, I did the tapes too with the flash dance, you know, rewind, watch her maniac again, yeah? So when waacking first came, like, it took me ages to find waacking footage on the internet. First of all, my parents didn't get a computer till really late, so I was way behind. I didn't have MTV in my house, so I was a proper loser. So it took ages for us to really find footage and stuff. It really took a long time. But there were crews popping up kind of everywhere, because Tyrone taught some people. Those people started to travel, and it was like paf, 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 paf. And then the Archie, and then we started digging out more teachers. Brian Green, Dallas Ziegler, who's no longer with us, she also taught us. She went to Sweden. We took workshops with her there. She came to London. We had workshops with her here. So yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. One more question for you, actually, Ginger, because you mentioned at the beginning. Sorry, I'm giving you lots of love right now. Just while we're on waacking, because you mentioned at the beginning the words punking and waacking, and this is something that I think we hear a lot, and people are not necessarily sure of what the difference is between those two terms. Could you clarify from your perspective?
I can clarify, but it might not be clear.
Of course.
Because basically, so every time someone asks this question, you kind of get a different answer.
Yeah.
But what I can say is, now in 2022, we've reached a certain point where a lot of waacking events will give out like awards for best punker, or they'll be like, you really have a great punking element. And I think that brings a little bit of confusion. When people say that, they're talking about the dramatic side of the dance of waacking. Waacking and punking are the same dance. But depending on who you ask, people will call it punking, or might call it waacking, or might say punking is an element of waacking. Also, Billy was saying this earlier, the vocabulary has changed, yeah? So maybe in the 70s, people would say, okay, so you might refer to members of the LGBTQ community as punks, which was not a nice term, but that may be how people referred to them. And so then you would say they're punking, because it was their dance. Some people would call it posing because it was influenced by the Hollywood films. Some people even called it the garbo. And then later in the 2000s, around 2004, 5, 6, that's when they pinpointed the term waacking a bit more, and Tyrone put double A in to kind of like make it a thing, because it was like punking, garbo, posing, waacking. Some people put an H in it, like whack, the sound in a help me.
Comic book.
Thank you, Andre. Whack. So whack, so some people still write whacking with an H and one A. So depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer. The short answer is punking and waacking are the same dance, but if you talk about punking, you're kind of more talking about the dramatic aspect of the dance.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Cool. All right, I have one last question before I open it up to the floor for anyone that wants to ask anything. I'm aware we might be getting numb bums, so we'll have about 20 minutes left, and then we can all go home or chill and chat more. But this has been really, really beautiful to see the kind of lineage of not only like dancers but styles as well across the panel. And I think we can agree that like most of the styles represented are still very strongly represented in the current scene now, waacking, hip-hop, choreo, popping, also breaking as well. But the one that has kind of disappeared, I would say, or is not so prominent anymore is UK jazz. So Gary, I just wanted to know a bit more from you about like where that went from the time when you were first practicing until now, because we see dancers from other countries doing UK jazz, but we don't really see people doing it so much here, or at least not in the street dance scene.
I have no idea. Okay. I don't know. I think it's a good question. When we went to Electric Ballroom in the days, George Powell decided to turn the jazz room, which was upstairs, into a hip-hop room. Obviously, in terms of economics, that was the most lucrative thing at that time, or at least he assumed that was the most lucrative thing to do. take our jazz room away from us and turn it into a hip hop room, which made no sense because the downstairs was predominantly hip hop. So it just made no sense. And I think that it failed drastically because it was a tiny room. So, you know, and the floors were like, actually this seems like it's a dance floor, but you know, upstairs in the jazz room was a hard concrete floor. So no one wants to be, I mean, you know, we was up there bussing our limbs and our knees and whatnot, but obviously as a break dancer, you know, the moment you go down on the floor and your head touches the floor, you're just concussed. So people weren't trying to put their heads on the floor upstairs. And so the hip hop room pretty much failed. Then what George did is he decided, okay, let's bring back the jazz room, and we just weren't interested. We just weren't, you know, we felt it was a real dagger to the heart because, you know, I mean, we were living under the rulership of Thatcher and the Conservative government, you know, and, you know, a lot of us came from, let's be fair, kind of poverty-stricken families and you know, our parents came from the Windrush and were studying and just trying to get by. So that was our utopia. So it was devastating. I remember hearing the news that they were going to turn the jazz room into a hip. It was so honestly heartbreaking. And I think from that point on in, it just never came back. It literally died from, I'd say, from that point. And, you know, I've got to kind of half respect certain people that have kept things going. I feel that there's been so much in-house fighting and politics in the jazz scene. And you've got this DJ that was doing this in this club and that DJ that was doing it in that club. And we just couldn't be asked. And, you know, I come from a slightly older generation. So, you know, you're talking about people of my age that are granddads. And we didn't pass it on. And in some ways, I suppose I have to take the blame for it in a way. I didn't necessarily believe in going to Pineapple or Huskies or any of those places and teaching it. I didn't believe in it. I felt to myself, well, look, you know, we found our own havens, our own places, and I felt that the youth should do the same. I didn't believe in the ideas of recreating foundation and recreating this and you need to come to me or you need to come to Jerry or other people that were members of the company. You know, I just felt it's a spiritual thing that will rear its head when it chooses to rear its head, like most art forms and music in times of need. You know, I don't know, maybe we'll see the jazz scene come back again. Hopefully we will. You know, I'm working with an actor at the moment on Sam Mendes' latest film, and he was telling me he was in the car the other day playing Southern Freeze from Freeze, and he said the man them in the car just turned around and just went, "What's this?" And this was a jazz funk track. You know, this is probably one of the biggest actors we have on the scene, young actors we have on the scene at the moment, and people are just not interested. I'm not generalizing here, but people are just not interested in that music, which first and foremost is fundamentally the thing, as I said earlier on, that spawned the dance. Yeah. So if there's no music, there is no dance. If you know, and vice versa. And I think that that's the thing that killed jazz, which is such a shame because it's absolutely my first love. You know, although I was in Dingwalls on a Monday night playing The Cure and Susie and the Banshees and the Smiths and the Police. You know, I'm an indie guy as well, but I've always said that the only way that scene can come back is if the young people take over it. It's as simple as that. I think that because we were kids. I was in Electric Ballroom at the age of like 14. We were all children, you know, and we created this scene from scratch, from stories, from music, and I just think it's not up to me. And as I said, I'm really happy to be here. Do you know what I mean? And listening to all of this information that I wasn't privy to at all. But at the same time, if I look at, I've got to props Kenrick, because I remember seeing this show once in Sadler's Wells with these children, and the concept of this show was based on kids learning martial arts, you know, and late night was our thing. I don't know why late night kung fu and that whole sort of culture was so synonymous with the Afro-Caribbean diaspora. It's quite sort of bizarre and profound in a way. I suppose the whole battling aspect probably plays a major part because we just wanted to fight. We were just angry kids. So we, you know, obviously with the whole sort of kung fu genre, you would have like, you know, this is my style and this monkey style would fight snake fist style and eagle claw would fight drunken style. Yeah. And that was the thing that we did as well. You had Birmingham that were doing something, and you had Nottingham that was doing something, and Manchester and Wolves. And us lot from sort of the southern part of England, we would hear of these guys that were doing something. And you know what we would do? We would get on a coach, or we would get on a bus, or we would bunk the trains, because no one had the kind of money to be paying to get on trains to go from like London to wherever. And we would hit their clubs and we would fight on the dance floor. And those stories would become sort of immortalized stories. But, you know, just to sort of make a really long-winded answer short, I just think that it's up to the kids. It's up to the kids to bring it back. For me, it's as simple as that. And not, you know, to come across like I'm neglecting giving, you know, if people come to me and they want to talk about it, I'm all for talking about it. But I just think it's down to the next generation. And that's why I got to respect Kenrick, because he's always tried to spawn the next generation and bring the kids up. I saw that show in Sadler's Wells, and it was one of the most emotional shows I have ever seen. And to see, like, I don't know how many people was in your crew, Kenrick, it's like maybe 30, 40 kids on stage, and to see those kids leave every single thing that they had on that floor. I remember watching it with you. I was side to side with Billy, and I could not believe the energy. And, you know, I'm sure you kind of know this, and we all know this, and not to get too philosophical, but, you know, you don't know if creating these crews and these dances and these companies, if it's saving lives. As I said, I don't want to get too philosophical here, but
it's true.
Do you know what I mean?
True.
And that for me is key. As I said, that was our escape. That was our utopia. And you got to understand that the frequencies of music have changed. So when you look at hip hop nowadays, as opposed to, you know, listening to the Commodores and having cool DJ Hurt like cutting up jazz tracks or disco tracks, you know, this is the origins of hip hop. Whereas now, what are we talking about? We're talking predominantly about aggression, which is the thing that spawns the movement. So jazz is this kind of fluffy, floaty thing, and our feet are just doing this, you know. So when you look at kind of the now generation, who wants to be like, that's why I'm wearing leather trousers. Do you know what I mean? Like, I ain't got time to be like throwing my old knees around the place, you know. But the kids that are young have that time, you know. So I pray that it will find its way back. I pray it will.
Just to add to what Gary was saying, don't think that jazz dance has disappeared, because it hasn't. There just isn't actually a scene perpetuating itself. So there are still dancers that dance, and there are people who actually do put on events. I go to a jazz dance club every month or every other month. I go to Nottingham. There's one in Nottingham. There's one in Derby that we go to, and one in Birmingham. It's just that nobody knows about it because it isn't promoted in that way. It's only promoted to people who are into jazz dance. They know where to find the information. So, like Gary said, it's up to people like ourselves to try and get the information out to more people. But the scene, like Gary said, there was so much like infighting amongst the people that now they think that the youngsters are not interested in learning that style or understanding it. So they only promote it to those people that they know have been doing it for years and years. But this isn't the way that they should be doing it. It's one of the reasons why I go there, because I know a lot of young dancers. I play and DJ at a lot of events. And we like to go to places like the club they used to have 4 to the Floor. And we would bring a crew of jazz dancers. We would come from a jazz club, Schiffler Shuffle. go to 4 to the floor, because the music in that house, in the house style, has the same cadence that it has in jazz.
Yeah.
So we can go there and jam down to that. You can't take jazz music and go to a hip hop club, you know, or a b-boy club, because the music, the cadence of the music, it doesn't have the same feel, doesn't have the same nuances. But house music has that. But for us, there aren't so many house clubs for us to be able to go to. So people like myself, I have to try and influence more of those jazz dancers, because there is a handful of them.
Yeah.
We went to Nottingham two weeks ago, and there was maybe 30 dancers in the place. You know what I mean? And some of them they won't leave their city. Like, some of them will come to London. Sometimes when there's a club in London, maybe 4 or 5 of them will come. You know what I mean? It's not like the old days, like Gary said, we would have all-dayers. You would bring a coach or 2 coaches, and you'd go to whatever city that club was in, and you'd get down. But there are still dancers doing it, you know what I mean? Believe me, I do it every other month, because I can't b-boy it the same. I can still b-boy, but I can't b-boy the way I used to. And I don't love b-boying the way I used to love b-boying, you know? I can still pop. I don't love popping the way I used to pop, but I love jazz a certain way, because I'm a dancer. You know, I'm not a b-boy, I'm not a popper, I'm a dancer. And if you're into dance, you should try and make yourself a dancer. Even if you predominantly love one style, be a dancer. Encompass everything.
Bars.
You see?
Just to clarify a little bit as well, the jazz scene was super niche. It was literally the small room in the Electric Ballroom. And the other thing that killed jazz was hip-hop. Because when hip-hop came, it was on the telly, it was in the media, and as a young kid, what was I, like 12 years old, 13 years old, you got a choice. You're going to go for the thing that's got more social currency. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's going to make you bigger in your social group? What's going to give you more clout in your social group? Jazz was not it. I learned it because my sister and the friends that she brought round, right? I think her boyfriend was a big jazz dancer as well. So I learned the steps. But what gave me more social currency? Popping and breaking and locking and all this kind of stuff, do you know? And then when the stuff like George Power pulling that bullshit, right? No other clubs took that up. Yeah, there was places like Ronnie Scott's and that, but they weren't really dance clubs. Do you know, that space was the dance space in London. And the places in Nottingham and all them kind of places, hip-hop just ruined them all. All the kids were getting into breaking and popping and all that, because it is way more social currency. So it was very niche to start with. It was super hard, right? Because the music's like bombing, and you have to move your feet real quick. Super quick. Like, nobody ain't trying to teach you, right? I used to have to
pick it up.
Like, really hassle my sister's boyfriend and say I'd leave the room if he would show me some steps, and then I can go and practice them while he's trying to hit on my sister, right? No one was trying to teach. No one was trying to teach.
Yeah.
Them days, it was very much like, if you look at him and Afro and Marshall and all that, they all dance different. Even their routines look a bit weird because they don't really dance the same. So everybody had their own personality, their own personal style, and it was really like that. You didn't really take on apprentices, do you know? And a style's going to die if that happens. Do you know?
I'll just quickly say something. In terms of niche, funnily enough, like so we were really lucky, let's face it. We got to perform, the company got to perform in front of we you know, that was my first television gig was Art Blakey, and then we did a video in the Pompidou Centre in Paris for Chick Corea. We performed in front of Prince Charles and Lady Di at the time, Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday, which was arguably the biggest gig in history. You know, it sort of trumped Live Aid. You know, it was in front of 85,000 people, and you know, we was on stage with like the likes of not at the same time, but we shared the same stage as Whitney Houston and Sting and the Fat Boys and Whoopi Goldberg and Richard Gere, and just heroes of the game, you know. So as much as I think the company was niche, we were still spoiled. I remember being on the 6 o'clock news because we had the highest grant at the time, and they put us on the news because we had won the highest grant. And I think that we were probably, in terms of sort of a street dance company, the first commercial company in a way, because we were always touring, always working, always on TV, always in videos. So what I find quite ironic, to get back to your question, is how commercial it actually was. You know, we do the Royal Albert Hall, Misha Paris, you know, so I don't know. I think it's one of them things, and touching on what Billy was just saying in terms of frequencies and cadence, I just think it was just something that was so incredibly uplifting at the time, and that's why when you look at the broken beat scene and you look at the house scene, it does parallel, because it's just this feeling of uplift, you know. But I think in these, you know, we've just come out of a pandemic and we're now heading into potentially a world war, you know. So I do believe, not to get into that.
You said the W word, man.
Right, this is it, war, you know. So I do believe to be hopeful that something will spawn from this season that we've been in. I believe that. I believe that the spirit moves in times when we, as a species, need some kind of lift, or we need something to, you know, grab hold of. Where there's no money, you'll find creativity is always at its peak, because there's nothing to rely on other than your creativity innately. So I think that it will come round again, because everything is based on cycles.
Yeah.
You know, when I was dancing at the time, I assumed I was one of the originators and one of the pioneers, but I wasn't at all, because, you know, I was watching documentaries on some of the oldest tribes in West Africa that were literally doing the same kind of moves. So I was thinking, I'm in my room, like creating something. I'm hearing music, which was, you know, invoking something new and something fresh. But it wasn't. It was just some sort of spirit talking to me from somewhere, from the ether, which then spawned this thing that had been before. You know, if I watch what Hakeem does, what you do, Kenrick, what you do, like what everybody does, there are definitely elements of everything in everything. So I think, you know, it's up to you to spread the gospel and bring this back, because I don't really have too much to do with dance anymore, you know. That's why I just feel really happy to be here. Do you know what I mean?
You're fucking weird, bro. What am I doing here?
I mean, someone can hold it. I can hold both, 2 mics. Thank you for that. I think this is a really beautiful way to kind of conclude this public conversation, because you're right, it is up to my generation and the generations below me now to carry the torch and to continue this on. And yeah, things that Hakeem and Kenrick and Ginger and like everyone on this panel are doing are teaching the young people, teaching the next generations. Kev coaches me in his kitchen for free every week, like since like 6 years now. Kev's Kitchen, if you know, you know. And yeah, it's ultimately up to my gen. So, and I just want to give Clara her flowers, actually, because she's not on this panel, but Clara has been like almost single-handedly holding up the underground scene in the UK for a long time. And she's not even from here, he said. But she has, and linking back to kind of jazz and house and the connection, Clara has been doing a mentorship program for the past 3 years, which myself and several other people in this room have been a part of. And I think that has really inspired us to, again, like carry that torch forward and see what we can do to make stuff happen and to push the scene forward and to see where it can go. So thank you to Clara, because you're a legend. And thank you to all of you guys, because this has been really, really inspiring and enlightening. And yeah, it's just super, I don't even have the words right now, I'm very tired. It's been a long week. But yeah, can we get a big, big, big thank you to everyone on our panel again, please? what we would do is we've got some drinks downstairs in the members hub. So anyone that has like questions that they want to ask, we've got about half an hour where you can go and like pull these people's arms if you still stay or if you don't run away, and chat between ourselves. But yeah, let's finish up here, and it's just back downstairs. You will see it. Maren, you want to say? Yeah, go ahead.
After all these amazing stories, I just have a couple of boring household things. But first, can we give it up for AIM Collective, who's put this all together all week? Well done on hosting. If you don't know, there's going to be a film screening hosted by the one and only Luke Lentis, a.k.a. the Duke, a.k.a. the Capsule. That's tomorrow. There's a couple tickets left, so get those. And then on Saturday, there'll be the link-up battle, and that's going to be sick, so you should come. Yeah. But I am part-time artist support producer at East London Dance, and my sole purpose is that this new building is serving our community, but more importantly, that it's served by our community, so it's ourselves putting on the events for ourselves. But to do that, we need funding, and to do that, we need to fill in feedback forms. So, Clint and Vicky, who I'm sure we all know, will be standing by the exit, holding up QR codes. If you can please scan it and fill it in, it's gonna help me get money for us to put on more events like this. So please do it. Go downstairs, get some drinks, talk to these wonderful people, and
come back tomorrow.
Come back tomorrow.